Hello and welcome back. This is the last example in our double exposure pro tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial so far. Now if you haven't already done so, please leave a review on Phlearn.com. That helps us out a ton and it helps everyone else know what you thought of the tutorial. Alright, let's get into it. We've got a great portrait and we've got a young astronomer thinking about the stars. Here in Photoshop, let's go to we're in chapter 2, section 7, and we're going to go ahead and open up these three images here. There we are. So let's go ahead and, you know the deal by now. Let's just make those a little smaller. Control or Command minus to do that. And we're going to use our move tool. Let's click and drag from one image to another. And we're going to do the same thing with these stars. Let's go ahead and close these out and hit F for full screen. And then let's just double click on our background. We're going to make everything smart objects. There we are. Now, to start off with, we are going to set this layer from normal down to lighten. There we are. And let's create a black and white adjustment layer. Even if you are going to wind up creating your double exposure in color, I would suggest actually starting off in black and white, just because it'll give you a great idea of the light levels of your image, and it'll get you combining those well, and then you can worry about your color later. Let's hit Control or Command T for our transform. Let's just make this a little bit smaller, and there we go. Kind of the idea was, you know, that his, there we go, that his, there we go, that looks nice there. The idea was that, you know, he was kind of thinking about the stars. Okay, that looks really nice. Now, a couple of things here. I want this to kind of fade in a little bit better down here, as well as right over here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab an adjustment layer. We're going to go to Levels. I'm going to hit Option Command G, and that's going to clip our Levels adjustment layer to our subject. And then I'm going to use my, there we go, we're going to use our Levels adjustment, and then we can have this be visible or invisible in different places. So let's go ahead and bring this all the way to the right there. Now on my layer mask, I'm going to hit Control or Command I. That inverts the layer mask, white to black, black to white. Now we're going to use our brush tool, and I'm going to paint with a large soft edge brush here. Okay, just very, very gently in here, and that's just going to let that kind of blend in. See, just kind of blends in a little bit better, and does the same thing down there. There we are. And that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and bring this in here as well. Now I want to do a little bit of framing, just a little bit more than what we have here. And I think I want to just move this a little bit too. There we go. That's starting to look good. Turn this off and on just to see how it's blending in. Anything you want to be invisible, you can just darken. There we go, and because we're using a lighten blend mode, it'll work that way. That looks really good. Now, the next thing we can see here is that we do have some of the stars are visible on the outside of our subject as well. So what I can do is I can turn these layers off, and then I'm going to make a selection of the lighter area, and I can use that as a layer mask. So if you want to select a lighter area of a photo, I suggest using channels. We're just going to go to Window and down to Channels. And then all you have to do is hold Control or Command and click on your RGB thumbnail. That selects out your lighter areas and leaves your darker areas unselected. There we go. So let's go back to our layers, and then I'm going to click on my layer that we want to hide. We're going to go to Layer, down to Layer Mask, and I'm going to go to Reveal All, which just creates a white layer mask. Now I'm going to hit Control or Command H, and that's going to hide my selection. Okay, and then just paint black right over here on this area. And what I'm doing is, remember, we selected the lighter areas of the photo, so I just used this as a selection. So selected the lighter areas of the photo, and then I just masked them out. We have a couple of options here. I want a little bit more like trees and things like that on this side of the frame. So what we're going to do is duplicate this layer. Let's click and drag it to the new layer icon. There we go. Now if you do that and it destroys your clipping mask, you can see this became unclipped. Just right click here again and go to create clipping mask. Okay, that'll clip it again. No big deal. Now this layer here, let's go ahead and first I'm going to click on the layer mask and we're going to fill the layer mask with white. Let's go to edit and down to fill, and we're going to fill that with white. There we are. And now I just want some more trees on this side here. Okay, and this time we're going to set this from normal down to darken. So I want some trees there. Hit Control or Command T. We're going to right click and flip that horizontally. There we go. And then figure out about where we want these to come in there. Okay. Now it's set to darken, and then that works, but we are experiencing there we go. We're experiencing a couple things. One is that it's kind of visible everywhere, which we definitely do not want. Okay, and then two is it's obscuring our stars. So what I'm going to do is create a levels adjustment. So let's hit Control or Command L. This is a smart object, so you can do that. Okay, and we're going to make our whites just a little bit, or our lights a little bit lighter. Oh, I'm on my layer mask. Make sure you're on your layer. There we are, making our lights just a little bit lighter. Okay, that's looking good. Now it's not obscuring our stars as much. We'll use our layer mask. Let's set this to normal actually. I'm going to set this to normal, and then I'm going to click on my channels. Remember, you can use your channels to select lighter or darker areas. So if you hit Control or Command and click on your channel, it selects the lighter areas. Okay, and now in this case we're going to click on our layer mask here. Let's set this back to darken. Hit Control or Command H to hide this selection, and now I'm going to paint black on our layer mask. And what this is doing is it's hiding the lighter areas of this image. There we go. So it's just revealing the stars. Then I can just deselect and paint with my regular layer mask there. Okay, now if I want it to just be visible inside of the head, here's another example where we'll want to go to our channels. Okay, let's go ahead and make this invisible so we have a darker area to work with. We'll select out the lighter channel here. Let's turn these back on. And then because we selected the lighter area here, we can just paint black on our layer mask. There we go. And it's going to allow me to delete that area here. So we selected the lighter areas, and now I'm painting black on the layer mask, which makes that area invisible. There we are. Very cool. So we were able to kind of bring that in and have a little bit more tree area visible there. And I'm going to see, maybe I want to delete that. There we go. I think that looks great. Now, turning this on, you can see we have a really interesting color image as well. I want to do one more thing. We have this other image of stars, and I want to use this second image of stars to add a little bit of stars just to the background, just kind of a sprinkling. Let's change our blend mode from normal to lighten. There we are, and we're going to bring this in, and you know, this is just kind of like taking over our image as a whole, so I really am not super interested in that. What we're going to do is just hold Alt or Option and click on our layer mask, which makes a black layer mask, and I'm just going to paint white on our layer mask just over here, just to give us a little bit more of these stars back, just like a hint of them. Okay, let's duplicate this layer. Control or Command J to duplicate. We're going to click on our layer mask. Let's go to Edit and down to Fill, and then we're going to fill this with white. There we are, and then we can kind of choose if we want some stars visible there. Okay, let's just click on our layer mask and fill that with black. Okay, fade those out a little bit more. There we are. Let's just rotate that around. So this is obviously kind of an optional step. This is just a little bit of, you know, bringing the double exposure into the rest of the image. So this is, I just thought it looked kind of nice with like a little hint of the stars outside there too. You still get the majority of the effect right here, just a little hint. So turning this layer, the black and white adjustment layer, back off. I think that looks really good. And let's go ahead and grab a gradient map. So with our gradient map, we're going to go to our gradient editor, and there we are. Let's just bring that up there. We use our dark point here. We're going to set to black. There we go. And somewhere in here, let's set to a nice light blue, maybe a little less saturated. Alright, and this will be like a dark kind of purple. And you can move these at any time. If you find that like, oh, I made my image too dark, you can move that and it'll kind of, there we are. And I'm actually just going to lower the opacity of this and let some of the original color kind of shine through. Okay, now we have these other layers here, these other star layers, and they have a little bit of color. So I'm going to click on them and hit Control or Command U, which brings up hue saturation. You can also go to image adjustments and down to hue saturation. And I'm just going to drag our saturation all the way down, just on these. And keep in mind, again, they are smart objects, so I can undo this at any time. There we go. And I want maybe just a little bit of warm color in the highlights. So let's grab our levels adjustment layer on the top of everything, go to our blue channel, and just pull a little bit of yellow into the highlights, just a tiny bit. I think that looks great. So I think it looks great as a black and white version as well as a color version. Well, there we have it. We've got 7 great examples of double exposures in Photoshop. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I had an absolute blast creating it. I think double exposures are so much fun. I know this is something anyone can do, and I hope you had a great time hanging out with me. Thank you so much. I'll learn you later. Bye, everyone.